You deserve to have the best physical, mental, spiritual, zealous wellness with Mike Hollis.
Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. I'm your host on a beautiful, here in Florida at least, a beautiful Monday evening. A lot going on. Soccer still, clearly. United States is doing awesome. I'm super stoked about the team that represents the United States of America. They've done a heck of a lot better than they ever really have. So that's an interesting thing to watch, and all the dynamics of all these countries. And one thing, too, I want to point out is people are showing a lot of videos, and there's a lot of good things in the United States and Canada, wherever the games are played. There's a lot of people from different countries that are really, really friendly and getting along and having these great times. And we need that kind of unity this time of our lives in the world that we live in, of course, because there's a lot of crazy stuff going on out there in the world today, and we need that unity where we know that it exists. We definitely know it exists, and get rid of racism and all the bad negative things that are out there in the world. And I think this is great timing because the World Cup is a big deal for a lot of countries, just to kind of see their country succeed, and even if they don't, they're still supporting them, and other teams are supporting the other teams as well. And so I've seen a lot of cool videos and cool things right now in the World Cup games. Of course, there's still some negative things happening, and I see that too on socials, and a lot of things going on in the world. But as life persists, we as human beings eventually expire. And my passion on this earth, as I have the time, is a lot of things. Of course, football and kicking, and coaching, and that's a real big passion of mine. But also, health and wellness and everything, and trying to keep people alive and healthy and happy as long as possible. But we clearly will not outrun time. It's going to be a time where we will eventually expire and pass on to another life, hopefully up in heaven with our Lord and Savior, and we'll be able to enjoy eternity up there as well. So today I have a guest on that is going to talk about the end of life and kind of just the process and just things. She's an attorney and has done a lot of work on this subject, and knows that I commend that profession, because it's got to be tough. When you're even like a hospice nurse or doctor, it's not good, and so I commend her for having the ability to emotionally handle things like that. She got on a little bit late. That's why we're a little bit late today. She got on a little later because she was dealing with an event where someone had passed away, and there were some things that they had to take care of. So we understand that. But we'll take a quick commercial break, and when we get back, I'll introduce my guest, Carrie McClain from Jacksonville Beach, Florida. So with that said, we'll see you in a couple minutes, and we'll get right into it.
It is possible. It's different this time. I'm showing up for myself, because now I know that weight isn't about effort alone. It's not just calories in, calories out. For years, the world told us it was simple. Eat less, move more, try harder. But science has shown us it's more complex than that. It's a real metabolic condition. That's where GLP-3 comes in. Powered by MBC 267, a naturally derived peptide complex discovered in salmon from the Norwegian Sea and select mushrooms. GLP-3 works with the body's own system to help manage appetite and support metabolic balance. No fighting your body, no forced outcomes, just support where it actually matters. Because when you address the real factors at play, progress feels possible. I'm becoming the best version of myself. This is me and GLP-3.
So welcome back. I have Carrie McClain on with me, and she's a Florida elder law and estate planning attorney with 2 decades of experience helping families navigate guardianship, probate, and end-of-life planning on the First Coast. She's a native of Jacksonville. She's a founder of the law offices of Carrie McClain in Jacksonville Beach. She has spent her career assisting families through difficult transitions and is passionate advocate for proactive conversations regarding death, dying, and legal protections. That's it's always a weird subject to talk about. And so it goes on, her bio goes on. This advocacy led her to found pathways to peace. I'm sorry about that. An end-of-life planning venture built on belief that estate planning is essential for anyone who wants to protect their family from conflict and court intervention. Carrie's perspective on healing and mortality has also been shaped by an unconventional wellness journey, including experiences with alternative medicine, psychedelic therapy, and a doctorate certification program offered from the California Institute of Integral Studies. You got me with the alternative medicine. I love that.
Very good. Well,
Yeah.
that is really my near and dear to me at this point. I have not only studied on the new and emerging psychedelic therapies that are available, but I've been able to study with some key players here in the First Coast, which include a cardiologist, an oncologist, 2 attorneys, a clergy member, and a compounding pharmacist that all have gone through the same program I have. That requires a doctorate program to participate. And it was almost a 1.5-year study program. And that was, back about in 2024. And before Trump entered the recent signing of the more progressive, aggressive ability for providers to get trials done on psychedelic medicine. So that was entered, and that was with regarding Ibogaine. But that is a really unique area that I've been focusing on. But in addition, I've also been focusing on vibrational sound healing and what sound healing can do. And so my husband and I, and including many of these individuals I just named, have been working to provide at-home service of these vibrational sound beds that provide different sound and megahertz for healing the body. That's kind of alternative. So if psychedelics aren't actually on your radar, you can do other options, which are sound and breathing techniques that can also produce a very unique healing in the body.
That's funny you mentioned that, because I've seen a lot of, and again, on social media, you never know what these advertisements, if they're actually legitimate, and that there's these sound bars that they ting and then they put on their forehead and stuff like that. Again, I don't know how those, if it's true or not about those, but clearly someone like you talking about it makes me more, obviously accepting of it, because it's tough to to believe some of the things on social media. But I think that's a super cool thing. And again, I can open some rabbit holes here, but ever since COVID, and I've told my audience this, they probably know that about me, as far as just all these little things that I've been down, and I've seen things with like the bells, like the church bells. Like, why don't you see church bells anymore? Again,
well, I'm very lucky. I still have those church bells that ring down here in the beach. We still have some traditional old churches that still ring those bells every hour and on the half hour. So I do get that resonance, and it's still calling. So that is wonderful. It's wonderful that you have really taken a notice that it's not resonating in our communities the way it used to.
Well, and I think there's been a lot of our history that's been erased for obvious reasons. I think that there's again, I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but I think there's a group of very, very wealthy individuals, families that have been passed down from generation to generation, that have their thumbprint on us, and they're controlling everything about us. Again, it's all about the mighty dollar. Everybody's always talked about the big pharma being in the pockets of the government and everywhere, in food too, like just all of our food. Like we're having all these diseases that are causing problems within us because of the food we're eating. But hey, we got a remedy for that, because we got our big pharma. You just pop the pill and you'll be good, and so it's a big cycle. And again, the first time I've said this, it's definitely something that it's very irritating to hear and learn more about. But I've been digging a little bit deeper on some other issues. and the bells and the frequencies and things like that, that I've heard that have actually done a lot of good things for people, and they've kind of erased that kind of stuff from our history for a good reason, because they don't want us to heal ourselves. They want us to pay to be healed. You see the same kind of thing there?
Well,
Yeah.
I would like to, direct you to the sound vibrational healing has been a tradition in medicine that Nikola Tesla had provided.
Hmm.
Over 101 years of his, we've celebrated, and I urge you to look at the amount of data and information Nikola Tesla has provided to medicine over and above the electrical innovations that he did with Niagara Falls. And the reason why we have all of the power we have today is through him, not through Thomas Edison and the others that people tend to always relate back. So I urge you and your listeners to look and see at the amount of medicine, holistic medicine, that Nikola Tesla had given to the masses prior to his death. So I urge them to look into that, and also into a program that hits almost directly on what you were saying, called SHOTS. And that's what it's called, SHOTS, the eugenic program. And that program, that documentary is very important because it goes back to pre-1900s, 1920s, to the eugenics programs that were in progress in the United States prior to Adolf Hitler, prior to any Germans, prior to any eugenic projects that were going on in Great Britain. It was focused here, and who created those programs, and then how that transitions into our current vaccination regimen today. So I hope your listeners look into the documentary. Is called SHOTS, the eugenics program. It's very informative. So those things resonate with what I've been exploring, which is how to really talk about death and dying. And what I do as an estate planning attorney, people do not want to really engage in that talk. Estate planning. Why it's nice to say estate planning, but when you start talking about writing your last will and testament and who would take care of you in certain situations, people become very uncomfortable, and they don't like to talk about that. So what and how could I start approaching this conversation from different angles to make people more comfortable? And that led me down all different pathways and created my curiosity in death and dying, and how couples who are, or family members and loved ones who are faced with traumatic end of life scenarios can better deal with it, not just from the estate planning side and the legal side from what I do, but from a whole life approach. And that comes from many different aspects, and the legal side is just a very small snippet of that.
Yeah, that's awesome information, and you're right. It's something that I've kind of put off for a while. I've been in the process. I've kind of I need to take care of it now, like my will and all that. My mom actually gave me, she showed me hers for an example. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm getting that. But that was, it's one of those things that you have to prepare for, and it takes someone special like you, like emotionally, because you have to deal with families who are clearly emotional about losing a loved one, or knowing that they're about to. But it is a reality, and that's really the point I was trying to drive home at the beginning of this episode, is that we want to make sure that people understand it's inevitable. We have to prepare for it, and if you don't, you talk about like the cost of funerals and cost of things and taxes that you have to pay for dying. It's crazy. Tell us a little bit about that. Like I want to know, how much taxes am I going to have to pay for someone in my family passing away?
Well, very good question. I do want to stress, though, that no matter what, when someone turns 18 and they are just like you and I, completely capable, or they're not, they are developmentally disabled, they are emancipated at the age of 18. So the parents' right to make decisions and the right to information ceases. So it doesn't matter whether you're 18, 88, 98, married, single. An estate plan is important because that's what is going to allow you to stay out of the court system, most likely, if they're drafted properly, and staying out of that, what you would call Uncle Sam put in his pocket in your estate. And we can do that with different tools that are already out there for your listeners, and probably they just don't even know that's in their repertoire, such as going to their bank or their financial institution and just making sure there's a pay on death or a due on death designation. And you just want to check that every year or annually, because you never know. Sometimes banks are sold and information is transitioned, and maybe it's not always followed correctly. So you just want to follow up and make sure at least every year, maybe 2 years, that your pay on death beneficiary or designated person has been updated. That's one free thing you can do. The other things are just things such as a ladybird deed on property. Real property should potentially, and most likely most of your listeners could put their homestead into a ladybird deed, and that's really an enhanced life estate deed. Ladybird deed is just kind of like a term we use in our field. So that's a very good, useful tool. It's very inexpensive. It gets registered with the court, and upon the last of the person to expire, if it's a husband and wife, upon the last of them to expire, their kids just take, or whomever they deeded the property to, they just take that to the clerk's office, file the death certificate, and the property is theirs. It's much easier than dealing with probate. Probate can be very costly, very time consuming, and at the end of the day, the only people that really win are lawyers, right, who are probating the estate. And I don't want to cut my profession short, but there's lots of things we can do ahead of time. What I say, homework to my clients. Speaking to you, Mr. Hollis, Prince did not have an estate. Why? Not because he didn't know he needed it, but because it was just, I'm gonna get to it. He knew it was important, but before the time, we never know when that time's gonna come and that expiration's gonna happen. So that's why I just think it's important for parents who have a 22-year-old kid who's just starting out, encourage them to get a durable power of attorney naming them, get a healthcare surrogate living will done for their adult child, so that they can still make medical directives should that kid have an accident when they're snow skiing or boating or anything like that. So they're not coming to me an emergency situation, and then we have to establish a guardianship. And just to tell your listeners what a guardianship is, it is it's a situation where the state of Florida, you would petition the court to become the legal guardian over an adult, and you would allege why you need that, and it requires 2 cases happening at the same time: a mental health case and a guardianship case. That's 2 filing fees, 2 legal actions, 2 things you need to pay an attorney on, and then you have a bunch of other individuals that are involved. An attorney's appointed for the person who's incapacitated, an examining committee. All of those people have to be paid, and someone has to pay that. And usually the person petitioning, trying to get a parent, let's just stick with the scenario of a adult child who's hurt, would have to pay for that just to get access to their kids' things necessarily. So, and or to move forward on behalf of their adult child. So those things are so important. A durable power of attorney, a healthcare surrogate, yes, you can draft those yourselves, especially using chat, all these new AI applications, but the nuances that are particular to you and your family are important to really have an attorney look over. Make sure that it's done properly, it's executed in conformity with the law, and that your notary is clear, that it's in the correct format, just so that there's nobody declining to accept it when the time comes and it really needs to be utilized.
Nice. Very, very good. You've talked a lot about the importance of estate planning. Tell me a little bit about Pathways to Peace.
So Pathways to Peace is an endeavor I'm working on with a very good friend of mine who is a web designer. And I will say, until we launch it, I'll say this: it provides individuals with the ability to create a virtual vault, so to speak, of their wishes that can be changed, modified. Instead of paying me as an attorney every time you want to change your document and making those those very costly changes to something like a trust or your documents. This is going to give people that kind of ability to make those modifications and trigger any immediate notices to individuals upon, like, within 5 to 7 days of filing a death certificate, or of us, of the application being made aware of someone's passing or they're being hurt, so that information can be shared with people when it's necessary, not necessarily today. Because I can assure you there's things that I don't want to share with individuals until the time is ripe.
Makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's what Pathways to Peace is going to be about, and it'll be launching soon. It's the whole goal is just to give people the liberality to change their mind and not have to keep coming back to someone, an attorney, or going to chat or get, it's just going to provide a lot of ability for people. And, when you're talking about parents who have special needs children who are aging out and becoming adults, they're 26, 27, and now their parents are starting to care for their parents, and attention is now kind of shifting from their developmental disabled child to their cognitive disabled parents, who are in just as much of a need as their adult developmentally disabled. It's a very tough position to be in for people, but it is a normal scenario that I deal with every day. How do we still care for everybody at the same time and still have enough gas for yourself, right? And that's where a lot of these modalities and healings that I'm talking about, breathing exercises, vibrational sound therapy, and we're not talking about sound bowls, we're talking about acoustic vibrational beds that resonate sound and vibrational healing. So where do all those things all mix together? So that's what Pathways to Peace is kind of like an option for.
That's very interesting. When you were talking about the sound and things like that in the bed and all that, I just remembered that I've got a guy that makes water for me. Like, he doesn't make the water. He distills the water from the city water and then puts it through like a 14-step process called hydrosonic water. He's trying to get out in the market right now, but he talked a lot about how he's starting to listen to some just on YouTube, just little things you find on YouTube, and to help him sleep better at night and all these things. And he uses energy, like magnetic energy, and also movement, and also sound in his water. That's part of his process of making his water. So water is life, and he uses all that stuff. Crazy.
Absolutely. I have a copper bracelet on.
There you go.
Copper has been very helpful to me. I am turning 50 this year. I can't believe it. And I have been slowly realizing I'm very active. I have a younger husband. I've got 2 young kids. At 50, I still have an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old. So still very active. And I've realized now, oh my gosh, I'm going to be 50. It's strange. So I'm starting to take better care of my body, eating better. But it's certainly been something I've been cognitively aware of lately, the last 3 months, because I think it's coming pretty quickly. I turned 50 in September. So that's why I've started looking at all these different things to try to help me and my kids. Really, the whole vibrational healing and the vibrational sound beds came about because I had to write a dissertation in that doctorate program, and I had to write something as my final thing. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to write on? I want my kids to experience what they're explaining these psychedelics are, but obviously nobody's giving their kids psychedelics. What else could work? And that's how I came to find out about these vibrational sound beds and how they can learn to journey and journal about their journeys. But I did want to caution you and your listeners about some of those things you can find on YouTube. Just be careful, because there is lots to be said about sound, and I don't want to spook your listeners, but there can be messages, subliminal messages that they may not want to be receiving. So be very cautious of who you are allowing your ears to be susceptible to, and your mind.
I read you loud and clear. I understand exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, there's a lot of evil out there, and they do things to just underneath the, behind the scenes kind of thing that you never really know about. So there's messages in the in like the Monster drink. They say that the claw is like a 666 sort of symbol. Again, that's another rabbit hole. But kind of sounds like you were talking, with regards to like the emerging mental health options and thinking outside the box and having the regarding new wellness and mental health developments and things like that. It's very interesting. I love that side of it as well. Because not only physically we need help and so forth, and trying to stay as young and youthful as we can, and taking advantage of these natural things that we can, but there's also that mental side of it as well. I just got certified as a holistic health coach, and two things I didn't realize were as important as I learned they were, was sleep. I knew it was kind of important, but I learned a lot more in detail about sleep. But then also the mental stress. And how to how much stress affects our body in a negative way physically. So yes. Touch a little bit upon that. And that'll be our last little go around here, and then we'll.
No problem. So, the muscle memory. We always talk about that muscle memory, but the body also keeps a score of the daily life, and more importantly, it really does keep the score of trauma. And we don't necessarily process it that day. We don't know when we're going to process it. That's what I learned in this very, detailed course that I took through California Institute. And as an attorney, I never knew how important mental health was to my profession, to every profession, to everything that we touch as humans. It's sad for me to just kind of get that concept at such a late age, like 47, I think I was. But at least I got it, and I want to do better for my kids. So learning that mental health is not a stigma, it's not a negative thing, took some time for me. Professionally, to kind of swallow that I might need help, or I might want to talk to someone. I don't know if I need help or that I want to talk to someone, but that it could probably do me good. And so learning that mental health portion was so important, and what I could do by myself to try to help those things before I, got to a therapist or had to pay. What could I do, and what could I inspire my kids to do? And that brought about breathing and meditation and listening to these vibrational sound bed, journeys that they could then talk with me about, and we could do it together. And that's why we think it's a great opportunity for families and loved ones to grow and learn more about each other.
Yeah, that's awesome information. And one of the things I, as a former NFL kicker, I dealt with a lot of stress, and I don't know how I did it. It was incredibly stressful, but I just somehow miraculously made it through. But the NFL, I was okay retiring, because I knew that I wasn't going to have to deal with that stress for a while there. Every Sunday morning I wake up, I think I'm in a hotel room and it's game day, and like, wow, this is weird. It's like a nightmare. But no, I don't think it's that bad. But with regards to just kind of how I personally dealt with stuff, I don't know honestly how I dealt with it so good. Again, I don't want to think that I just shoved it under the carpet and saved it for later kind of thing, or I just bottled it up. And I've always heard horror stories about that, where you pop the lid and just everything kind of shoots out at one time. I don't think I've ever really dealt with a lot of that, but yeah, it's a very different field, and kind of like the mentality and learning how to control your thoughts. It's a crazy thing to think about, but I kind of dumbed things down. I tried my best, and I think it was kind of my nature, of course, but with regards to kicking field goals in the NFL, there's already enough pressure in the job itself. But I think that just having that ability to just kind of dumb it down and make it not so serious, which was very hard to do, but I was able to do that, especially with the form and this is long, till another episode, but with the form and stuff like that I learned, I was so confident in it that I didn't really have to care too much about making kicks, because I knew that my form was good and it was going to take care of it. But mentally it was, challenging. Some days weren't like you expected, and you have to kind of improvise. And and adapt and learn how to deal with certain different situations, different stressful situations. So very commendable with all the stuff that you've been doing and understanding the body in general, on top of having to prepare for end of life, which is obviously what you do is, for a living, but you're also deeply involved in I would say holistic health. I mean, how else would you think of it? Yeah. Right. So I didn't know that about you going into this podcast, and I'm glad that we had you on. That's a very good mix of everything. I think we talked about, things during our life and how we can prolong our life and have a youthful and happy, full life. And then of course, when the time comes, you step in again and help us with that kind of stuff. So I will definitely be hitting you up for some of these things that I have not done. That you've definitely made aware.
I hope you do. I will tell you, we all know what a birth doula is, someone who helps you bring life into the world. There's now a plethora of death doulas. There are individuals out there, over and above what hospice does from the medical standpoint, that I urge individuals to look into what a death doula is and how those people are bridging the gap for individuals who are having a tough time. So I've really enjoyed having this kind of opportunity to kind of spill what I know in a neat way, and feel comfortable in doing it. Lawyers don't like to really share a whole lot about their, what they do on the side because they get judged, but mine all blends together, so I'm good.
Yeah. I think you shed a great light on all of the above. Everything we talked about, I think, was wonderful information. And so I do appreciate you for coming on. And with that said, I hope you guys have an amazing Monday night. And thanks again for joining the show, Carrie. And we'll see everybody else tomorrow. Next Monday night at 5:30 on Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. You guys have a great night. I love you all.
Thank you for watching Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis.
Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you next time.